Chapter 4. The Road Through the Forest. After a few hours, the road began to be rough, and the walking grew so difficult that the Scarecrow often stumbled over the yellow brick, which were here very uneven.
Sounds like the governor needs to fix the roads.
Sometimes, indeed, they were broken or missing altogether, leaving holes that Toto jumped across and Dorothy walked around. As for the Scarecrow having no brains, he walked straight ahead, and so stepped into the holes and fell full length on the hard bricks. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. It never hurt him, however, and Dorothy would pick him up and set him on his feet again, while he joined her in merrily laughing at his own mishap.
The farms were not nearly so well cared for here as they were farther back. There were fewer houses and fewer fruit trees, and the farther they went, the more dismal and lonesome the country became. At noon, they sat down by the roadside, near a little brook, and Dorothy opened her basket and got out some bread. She offered a piece to the Scarecrow, but he refused. "I am never hungry," he said, "and it is a lucky thing I am not, for my mouth is only painted, and if I should cut a hole in it, so I could eat, the straw I stuffed with would come out. That would spoil the shape of my head." Yes. Dorothy saw at once this was true, so she only nodded and went on eating her bread. "Tell me something about yourself." "Oh, sorry." "Tell me something about yourself and the country you came from," said the Scarecrow when she had finished her dinner. Yes, after all that, he eats her food and ruins the shape of his head. So she told him all about Kansas and how gray everything was there and how the cyclone had carried her to this queer land of Oz. The Scarecrow listened carefully and said, "I cannot understand why you should wish to leave this beautiful country and go back to the dry, gray place you call Kansas." That is a good point from the Scarecrow. I'm not meaning to have a go at Kansas, but I've been there and it rains. "That is because you have no brains," answered the girl. "Okay, don't say that out loud, Dorothy. Think that in your head. No matter how dreary and how gray our homes are, we are people of flesh and blood and would rather live there than in any other country, be it ever so beautiful. There's no place like home." The Scarecrow sighed. "Of course I cannot understand it," he said. "If your heads were stuffed with straw like mine, you would probably all live in beautiful places." "Probably. And then Kansas would have no people at all. It is fortunate for Kansas that you have brains." I don't think that's how brains work." "Won't you tell me a story while we are resting?" asked the child. The Scarecrow looked at her reproachfully. I don't think I've ever given anyone a reproachful look before. And answered, "My life has been so short that I don't really know nothing whatever." That's what it says in the book. "I was only made a day before yesterday. What happened in the world before my time is all unknown to me. Luckily, when the farmer made my head, one of the first things he did was to paint my ears, so that I heard what was going on. There was another munchkin with him, and the first thing I heard was the farmer saying..." Oh, I gotta munch on stuff again. Let me find some... Oh, candy. This'll be good. "How do you like those ears?" "They aren't straight," answered the other. "Never mind," said the farmer. "They are ears just the same, which is true enough." Okay, that's a little rude to the Scarecrow. "Now I'll make the eyes," said the farmer. So he painted my right eye, and as soon as it was finished, I found myself looking at him and at everything around me with a great deal of curiosity, for this is my first glimpse of the world." "That was a rather pretty eye," remarked the munchkin who was watching the farmer. "Blue paint is just the color for eyes." Now I like the color blue, but that's, I don't know, they're a little much on blue. A little obsessed. "I think I'll make the other a little bigger," said the farmer. And when the second eye was done, I could see much better than before. Then he made my nose and my mouth, but I did not speak because at the time I did not know what a mouth was for. Oh, goodness. I had the fun of watching them make my body and my arms and my legs, and when they fastened on my head, at last I felt very proud, for I thought I was just as good a man as anyone. This fellow will scare the crows fast enough, said the farmer. He looks just like a man. He is a man, said the other, and I quite agree with him. The farmer carried me under his arm to the cornfield and set me on a tall stick where you found me. He and his friends soon walked away and left me alone. I did not like to be deserted this way, so I tried to walk after them, but my feet would not touch the ground, and I was forced to stay on that pole. It was such a lonely life to lead, for I had nothing to think of, having been made such a little while before. Many crows and other birds flew into the cornfield, but as soon as they saw me, they flew away again, thinking I was a munchkin. But this pleased me and made me feel I was quite an important person. By and by the old crow flew near me, and after looking at me carefully, he perched upon my shoulder and said, "What? The crow is about to talk?" How would a crow talk?
Bark, bark. I wonder if the farmer thought you could fool me in a clumsy manner. Any crow of sense could see that you are only stuffed with straw.
Then he hopped on my feet and ate all the corn he wanted. The other birds, seeing he was not harmed by me, came to eat the corn too, so in a short time there was a great flock around me. I felt sad at this, for I showed I was not a good scarecrow after all. But the old crow comforted me, saying,
If you only had brains in your head, you would be as good a man of any of them, and a better man than some of them.
That's probably true.
Brains are not the only things worth having in the world, no matter if one is a crow or a man.
I'm sorry, I still can't get over that there's a talking crow. Weird, just bizarre.
After the crow had gone, I thought this over and decided I would try hard to get some brains. By good luck you came along and pulled me off the stake, and from what you say, I am sure the great Oz will give me brains as soon as I get to the Emerald City.
I hope so, said Dorothy earnestly, since you seem anxious to have them.
Oh yes, I am anxious,
returned the Scarecrow. Yeah, he's like an angsty teen.
It is such an uncomfortable feeling to know one is a fool.
Hopefully Dorothy's going to say something like, hey, you're not a fool. You seem nice. Well, said the girl, let us go. All right, Dorothy, come on. And she handed the basket to the Scarecrow. There were no fences at all by the roadside now. Okay, why bring it up if there's nothing there? There are also no kazoos. You don't need to put it in the book. Sorry, I'm getting defensive. Let's just enjoy the story. There were no fences at all by the roadside now, and the land was rough and untilled. Toward evening they came to a great forest, where the trees grew so big and so close together that their branches met over the road of yellow brick. It was almost dark under the trees, for the branches shut out daylight, but the travelers did not stop and went on into the forest.
If this road goes in, it must come out,
said the Scarecrow. See, he's thinking.
And as the Emerald City is at the other end of the road, we must go wherever it leads us.
Anyone would know that, said Dorothy. Okay, I guess I assumed Dorothy was like a good person. She's a bit pretentious. Hopefully she'll learn a lesson through this.
Certainly, that is why I know it, returned the Scarecrow. If it required brains to figure out, I should have never said it.
After an hour or so, the light faded away, and they found themselves stumbling along in the darkness. Take a break, take a nap. Dorothy could not see at all, but Toto could, for some dogs see very well in the dark, and the Scarecrow declared he could see as well as by day. So she took hold of his arm and managed to get along fairly well. If you see any house or place we can pass the night, she said, you must tell me, for it is very uncomfortable walking in the dark. Soon the Scarecrow stopped.
I see a little cottage in front of us, he said. Belt of logs and branches. Shall we go there? A side note, I've heard that Abraham Lincoln built the log cabin that he was born in, which is an incredible feat. Yes, indeed, answered the child. I'm all tired out. So the Scarecrow led her through the trees. I think he meant to say around the trees. The Scarecrow led her through the trees until they reached the cottage, and Dorothy entered and found a bed of dried leaves in one corner. That's not what we call a bed. That's what we call leaves. That's just a pile of leaves. She should have opted for a Motel 6, where you can get a clean, comfortable room and pets are welcome. She lay down at once with Toto beside her and fell into a sound sleep. The Scarecrow, who was never tired, stood up in the corner and waited patiently until morning came. That seems like just a waste of time from the Scarecrow. Maybe build a bed? Oh, sorry. Anyway, that was the entire chapter. Sorry that nothing happened. I didn't write it.